on the dance floor. Come on, do it one time. Do it two times. Oh, shake a little bit.
My name is MacDougall. I live in Royston, BC. I guess I'm semi-retired. Is this for the old people or is this for anybody? Ungraciously aging.
Shake, oh, just a little shake. Come on, everybody, shake. Ha 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 ha. Hey.
I always played music from my teenage years, and I was in a number of bands in my hometown in Ontario, and at the same time, I had to get a job, and I actually did. I did Christmas mail delivery, and thought, wow, they pay you for walking around. So I told the postie that I was working with that, hey, how do I get a job like this? And so I got a job working at the post office. Meanwhile, I was playing bands in the evening. And so I managed to do that for about 3-4 years. And I couldn't do it anymore because we'd be playing someplace and I'd wake up and I had to ride, 60 miles on my motorcycle to get to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And so I finally quit my great career at the post office and I went full time into music, which, did some stuff around Ontario. My big claim to fame there is our band backed up Tiny Tim one time in Owen Sound. So that was pretty pathetic as a thing. And then I came out to the Comox Valley and some friends of mine lived in Merville, and I had a godson there, and I wanted to see him, and so I came up here, and it was one of those beautiful Comox Valley falls, where in Ontario would have been snowing or getting really crappy out, and here it was sunny and it was great. And I met some musicians. I met Peter Gilmore, who you probably know, and a couple other people. Bruce Wing is still around playing. He was in a number of people in the band we formed, which was Roadside Distraction. And like any good Vancouver Island kid, I went to Alberta because I couldn't make any money here playing music or whatever. And so I went up to Edmonton, and I fumbled and lucked my way into a situation where I was doing advertising and marketing for an automotive company. And that led me to screen printing because I had to make little signs. We didn't have digital back then, and so to make the signs for the retail stores, I had 5 retail stores that I ran all the ads for. I got a book on screen printing and I started screen printing, and then I went to work with a guy who, because I wanted to follow that, I really liked it. I liked making things better than advertising things. There's a big difference there, right? And so I learned to screen print up there, worked for a couple of places, worked for an ad agency, and then I came back to the Valley, and that would have been probably 82, 83, and I worked at a place called Island Screen Print that was out on Plateau Road. It was a nice big screen and sign shop. And I worked there for a while, but big depression here and no work. And when it went bankrupt, I started my own little company, and that was probably 83. And I remember sitting in my bed, and I didn't have any money for oil, and it was freezing cold. I was out by the airport in some little shack. My wife calls it the Rat Shack. And I got this call from this friend of mine down in Vancouver who said, hey, the screen printer just got fired or he quit here, do you want a job? And so I went down there thinking, I'll work for 3 weeks and get some money and come back up. I ended up staying for a year, ran the company, at least the screen department of the company, Kodiak Signs, big sign company. And then at the end of that, I'm kind of going, well, wait a minute, let's see, I'm running a crew, I'm doing the quotes, ordering the stock, doing the job, making up the invoice, and sometimes going out and collecting the money for the invoice. So I went, I should probably be doing this for myself. So I started my company down there, moved into Yaletown, which at the time was one of the cheapest, crappiest places in town. They still had the railway tracks there, and so I got a little place and started my company. And I started working with Waterbase in the early 90s and really embraced it. And I did a lot of art prints back then. I wasn't doing textile. in the late 80s and through the 90s, when we still had our company in Vancouver, I started working with a lot of First Nations artists. And some of them, like Robert Davidson is fairly well known. David Neel, who I still work with now. George Littlechild, you saw the pictures of well, if you're looking at this, you saw some pictures. So we're working on a print for George. So these are 30 some odd year relationships. You know, we were doing all this printing, and I was saying, man, you know, where's the indigenous printers? I mean, the art print is a legitimate form of Northwest Coast art. It's actually very iconic. You could say, I use the comparison sometimes with, if you took contemporary art, everybody likes contemporary art. Well, you can't tell where contemporary art is from. But First Nations art of the Northwest Coast, you can tell. You could be anywhere in the world and you can tell exactly where that art is from. And it is iconic to this place. And if you look at all our tourist things and all this stuff, mostly made in China, unfortunately, but it's First Nations art. And so from my perspective, I'm a maker. I'm not much of an artist. In fact, I'm no artist at all, but I'm a maker. And I thought, man, like, it would be really, really cool if some First Nations people wanted to learn how to print. Wachiay Friendship Center itself is part of, I think there's 29 friendship centers in British Columbia. And they are organizations in urban areas that are there to help urban Aboriginal peoples that aren't necessarily, like in this place here. There's something like 6,000 people in this area that identify as either Inuit, First Nations, or Métis. And the Comox First Nation is 200, 300 members. So this facility here may serve people from the Comox First Nations, but they also serve a way wider variety of people. Wachiay Studio is owned by the board of directors of Wachiay Friendship Center, and it's in response to a challenge that's been put out for people to be just a bit more innovative, instead of just asking for funding all the time, to actually create funding to sustain programs. And so what we end up doing here is we're able to subsidize without asking anybody. We can put programs on, and so we've got some great things that I think are great that we do, and we get a little bit of funding, but then we can put funds in ourselves, you know, and we can say, no, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, you know, and go ahead and do it. So we have some autonomy here. And it's run as a social enterprise, so the profits that come out of this just go back into the operation, either here, or if at the end of the year there's actually a surplus, then it goes into the operations of the Friendship Center. And there was a project that we were working on that we were going to bring in. The idea was to bring in, say, 4 Indigenous artists, entrepreneurs, people that wanted to learn screen printing and wanted to work here, and learn the business, learn screen printing. And so when COVID hit, we couldn't do that. But the funders that we'd originally talked to, they said, well, you got any other ideas? Well, meanwhile, back in the ranch, we had been working on online, the concept of online education and screen printing. So we pivoted. We got a couple of people came on board with us that are just crackerjack. We couldn't believe how good they were in helping us do it. And so we run this thing, it's called screentheworld.org. You can look it up. And it's 2 things. It's actually more than 2 things, but there's 2 main parts of it. One, just anybody from around the world or wherever can sign up, and then through video instruction and online plans, they can build little vacuum tables, little t-shirt presses, little exposing, and be helped through the learning process of learning the basics of screen printing. where we took it a step further, and through some funding that we got through the BC Friendship Centers and the BC Ministry of Education, they said, okay, see if you can put this into an online program that focuses on First Nations people. So we have Art for Entrepreneurs, and we're just signing up our last cohort of 10 people. They're from all over the province. They're people who have been working on art, but realize that screen printing might be a good thing to know how to do to make more affordable art, or variations on, you do one original, you sell it, that's it. You do 100 run prints, you could sell it to 100 people, it's a lot cheaper. Print has always been the poor person's art form, or the people that don't have lots and lots of money. And so this program, we did our trial, and we had 10 or 12 people in it. And so we built a little kit, and we sent it out, and we do Zooms 2 times a week. It's a 10-week course, and it's very interactive in that people are expected to take photos of what they're doing, and then they bring it up, and then when we have our Tuesday or our Thursday, we'll be able to go through the problems, and say, oh, okay, somebody will say, oh, this really screwed up bad. So we'll look at it, and anybody else have that problem? Oh yeah, a few people put their hands up, because it's always the same kind of problems when you're learning this process. But at the end of it, some of the work is off the chart. We know that everybody that takes the course is not going to become a screen printer. But what we hope is that because we're putting it into First Nations communities here and there, somebody has the gear there. Somebody else might go, hey, what are you doing with that? I want to make some shirts, or or somebody comes up and says, I'm an artist. Hey, I did this really cool piece of art. I'd like to make a print of it. And now they have the material, like the equipment to do it, and the knowledge to do it, and we're ready to help them continue on.
Come on, everybody, shake, ha 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 ha, hey. Move your body, loo. But baby, it's true. I know what you say. Gonna do it anyway. Get your body on the ground and just shake.